I'm Lexy Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Hi, Heart Snugglers. Welcome back, and I'm so excited we're having Meg on the podcast again. A whole new version of her this time. She's post-pregnant mama, beautiful woman, so I'm really excited to dive into this juicy conversation. But for those who don't know you, go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so excited to be here, and I love the way you introduced it, the whole new version of me. So my name is Meg O'Neill. I am a sex and feminine embodiment coach, relationship coach for women. I run a membership called Full Spectrum Woman. That's kind of the whole essence of my brand, really teaching and supporting women to own and embody their full spectrum, all the parts of us as women that we've been taught to push down and feel shame around and feel like we're too much for. My work is really around owning and bringing those alive in our bodies, in our relationships, in our births, in our entire life. Yeah, I'm now a mama to my little son, Oisin. I've been with my husband, Jacob, for a decade now. So that really is a big part of my work. And we run a podcast called Sex, Love, and Everything in Between together as well, which talks about relationship, sex, and everything in between. And that's me.
Yay, so good. Okay, so the first question of the podcast is, what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Oh, someone did for me. I don't think it was the last one, but the first thing that popped into my mind was I was at a cafe recently with my son, and I have a carrier. So like this, carrier that you carry a baby in, and I'd unclipped him from it and I wanted to clip him back in, but I have to put him down to be able to do that. And an older man, he would have been in his late 60s. He noticed that I was like looking for a place, and he was like, I'll hold him. He's like, I'm a grandfather. I have two grandchildren. They live with me. And he was just so excited to hold him. So that was really beautiful. And then later I did it again, and he looked at me and he's like, I got you. Give him to me again. So it's just like
cute.
that sweetest. Yeah.
Aw, that warms my heart. That is so cute. Love how men just want to provide and
I
help.
know. It's so beautiful.
So beautiful. And the next question is, what do you wish all women knew about relationships?
Ooh, that their desires lead the way, that their ability to like offer their desires into the space and reveal their desires is just like the portal to everything they want in intimacy and partnership.
So good. Yay. Okay, so now let's dive into your pregnancy journey. But I guess before then, I'd love to hear like your journey in your relationship and how you even got to getting pregnant and what that's been like.
Yeah, beautiful. So we were together 9 years before we even conceived. And even someone asked me that the other day, why did you wait so long? And I think I was only 22 when Jacob and I got together. So I was obviously young, and I knew I always wanted to be a mother, but then I also found the path of entrepreneurship and business, and then he left his job, and we were both, both on the entrepreneurship path, which is a path in itself and requires so much devotion and so much of yourself. So even though we both knew we wanted children, we were still just like so devoted to building the foundations of our life and building the foundations of our mission and service. Jacob, like my husband, was very ready to, like, he always has known he's wanted to be a father. He's a few years older than me, but he would have had children like 5 or 6 years ago. But yeah, I think we were in that like setting up the foundations of our relationship and our life and our missions. And now as a mother, I'm so fucking grateful for that. I say that to Jacob like pretty much every day. I'm so grateful. Like, I'm so grateful we just have the life we have now and the freedom we have now, and we're able to parent the way we parent now because of like all the decisions we've made in the last 10 years. And although I really knew I wanted to be a mother, I also held a lot of terror around it. And I think that's the perfect word, because that's what I used to feel. And it wasn't around birth or anything. My terror was around the all-consuming nature of parenthood. And because I'd worked for myself for a really long time, and this probably was like 4 years ago, I started to feel this, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where it kind of got closer to like maybe in my late 20s, I'm like, okay, I know this is coming. And I just would focus and really feel all the ways that motherhood was going to take from me, like my sleep, my time. I wouldn't be able to work on my business as much. My day would be, revolved around someone else. That felt terrifying to me. It felt really terrifying. And there was just this point, and I don't even know what shifted it. It wasn't if I was trying to consciously shift it, but there was just this point in my life where that kind of just started to dissolve. And I really shifted from, oh, I want to pour into something. And I think those years of being, and the perfect word for it is selfish, those years of being selfish, working for myself, having the freedom I had, getting to do what I wanted when I wanted, that was so beautiful. And I needed that. And then there was just this feeling of like, I'm ready. I'm ready to pour into something. And I'm actually really feeling this pull towards motherhood and no longer feeling the like, what is it going to take from me? I'm excited about what it's going to offer me, who I'm going to be on the other side of that. So it was probably a year and a half before we conceived. And we got married around that time as well. And then again, we knew we wanted to conceive. We kind of started on the health kind of journey of that. Like I saw my friend who's a naturopath. I started detoxing and things. I really invited Jacob to do that too, but he was like, I don't want to do that. That's not my thing. He was like, doing Cambo and Sweat Lodge and all that. He was like, this is my way of doing it. You've got your way of doing it. This is my way of doing it. So that's how he kind of prepared. Yeah. And we did that. And then we were just ready. So the first month we opened to conceiving, we conceived. It's kind of a funny story about where we conceived. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
I always think it's like, you hear like, and I guess we're quite conscious humans. So, you hear other people being like, yeah, we prayed for our baby and we felt the spirit there and then we made love and the baby arrived. And the first month that we were like, okay, we're like open to it. It had been Christmas and Jacob's family had arrived for Christmas. And then we had a huge storm on Christmas night and all the power went out and all these trees were down and everything. And so the next day, my family came to holiday near us. So I went and stayed with them in an apartment. And so Jacob was back with his family working on the power thing. And Jacob would come and visit me at where I was staying with my parents. And we also had this new puppy dog. So the puppy, Jacob couldn't come because he had to look after the puppy. But one day he came in and visited and we were in the sauna together at this like apartment building. And then we're like, should we have sex in the toilets? And we had sex in this like male toilet. Yeah, like 99% sure that is where we conceived our son. And I thought it was a girl the whole time. And now I'm only just putting that together. We had sex in the male toilets. Maybe that's how yeah.
That's amazing. It's kind of more fun that way because it was just so authentic that moment, right? And you were just like,
Totally.
yeah. And that's what
Yeah, we were open, but it wasn't like this, like, okay, now is the moment where like making this big deal about it. It was like, okay, let's just see.
yes, and that's the biggest thing I'm hearing with all my friends who are trying or, clients and aren't succeeding. It's all this pressure they're putting around it and they're losing the like
Yeah.
joy of it versus like you were just like, let's make love in the toilet and then boom, you literally created a human.
And I think that piece around like, I think the deepest invitation of pregnancy, birth, especially unassisted birth outside of the system, and motherhood is surrender and letting go. And I think we get to even practice this in the way we conceive. And it's so fucking hard. Not, we conceived the first time. So I don't know what it's like to have that pain of trying and feeling that grip and wanting something so deeply and yearning for a child. But yeah, that it's the pressure. And I just think that the deepest invitation is the surrender piece. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you are anyways, like your body is creating the baby without you really doing anything. So it's like, how much can you just let the body guide you, which is so beautiful. But before we dive more into that, I'd love to hear, like, was there anything that you wanted to feel or like set up foundation in your relationship before conceiving?
Oh, I feel like because we'd been together so long and been working on our relationship for so long that we were just like so ready. It didn't
Yeah.
feel like we need to fix things, or it just felt like this was the next iteration that our relationship was calling us into, and like the next piece that we wanted to experience together and journey together in. It was like, yeah. So it really felt like it came from this piece of excitement. Yeah. It was more, I think our focus was like our businesses and setting up that like lifestyle foundation. And that was, our focus for a few years before that as well.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And what would you recommend to couples who are in relationship that you would say should be some pieces that you're seeing would be important before conceiving? I guess.
Oh my gosh, now I'm a mother. I'm like, again, I'm so grateful. I say to Jacob every day, I'm so grateful for our relationship and all the work we did beforehand. And I'm not saying, I teach and coach on relationships. I'm not saying once you have children and if you haven't had worked on your relationship, you're fucked. But for those who haven't had children, do the work beforehand and it'll be heaps easier. What I've noticed in motherhood so far is that I think a child is an amplifier. Like a child is just going to amplify whatever's there. If you're a woman that holds in your resentment, that's going to be amplified by 1,000,000%, because especially if you're a breastfeeding mother and you're taking the brunt of the parenting, especially in those early days, like you're going to feel like a bit of fuck him, like I'm doing it all. And if you're not actually able to notice that and speak that into the space and be witnessed in that, right, that's going to start to, crack at the edge of the foundation of the relationship. So being able to reveal and be witnessed in what's alive, I think that's everything, whether you have kids or not. But just being able to, we could call it vulnerability, but I just love, I think it's a David Data piece, or I definitely hear John Wineland speak into this, like the art of revealing, like being able to just reveal like what's going on for me right now and be witnessed in that, and being able to be the witness of your partner doing that too. Yeah.
That communication piece is so important. And that's even what you were saying at the beginning too, that you like your desires, naming that, it's essential. And something I've had to learn is like the difference of complaining about something versus ditching the complaining and just speaking what is at my needs. Worlds of a difference. And it's so like natural to go to the complaining.
Oh my God, I often say under every complaint is a desire. And it's like I think we're trained as women to just focus on the complaint as humans, full stop.
Yeah.
But that is like a game-changing practice. It changes the whole fabric of a relationship, especially we as women, because I think we're more vocal in our needs and our desires or our complaints. And so when we're able to find like what's underneath that, there's actually a yearning, there's actually a desire of my heart here, there's something I want more of, like awesome. When we learn to communicate that, oh my gosh, everything changes.
Yes, I agree. Okay, amazing. So the foundation set. So now let's hear about your journey of what did you do to prepare, like once you found out you were pregnant, what steps were you taking?
Yeah, so we did a pregnancy test. It was really funny. We did it, and it was one of those ones where it's like either one line or two lines, and two lines meaning pregnant. And I don't think Jacob knew what the lines, well, he obviously didn't know what the lines meant, because we like, we put it out and we were like waiting, and we turned it over, and I knew I was pregnant. And he just turns to me and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." Thinking that it was a negative. And I was like, "No, look at like what do you mean?" I was like, that's pregnant. I'm pregnant. And so it's such a strange moment to like, even when you want something. I was talking about a client with this the other day who's wanting to conceive, and it's such a strange moment of wanting something so deeply and knowing that it's coming, but then it actually like the evidence of it, oh, it's here, it's now, you're on the journey, which is so fun. But yeah, I was just so excited. I had a relatively easeful pregnancy. I just craved carbs, and like I had a lot of pizza and pasta with nothing on it in first trimester, but like just felt queasy. I didn't ever throw up or anything. I felt very tired. So quite easeful compared to, the rocky road that can be trimester one for some people. So I was very grateful for that. Loved telling our family and friends. That was so much fun. Just loved, like, that was such a beautiful season to just like share the joy. I had a really beautiful friend of ours who lives close. We went to a cafe, Jacob and I, to meet up with these friends. And I was very early on, and I was like, I want to tell them today. And Jacob was like, oh, let's order a baby chino at the cafe and get the baby chino out. And then everyone's going to be like, who's the baby chino for? And we'll be like, we're pregnant. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm definitely not doing that. And then we got to the cafe, and my friend was like, hey, I've got some news. I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, us too.
Oh my gosh.
So that was really fun. We didn't get to do the baby chino thing. But yeah, I had a really good friend of ours, we were like due on the same day. I always knew I wanted to have a wild pregnancy. Actually, I always knew I didn't want to have scans. I don't know how I knew that. I'd been around people with around birth. I've been in a health space. Like I've valued health and like, organic food, and just, I've stepped out of the medical system for the last decade. So I think I've just had that in my field. So I just knew, not through research, not through anything, but just knew I'm not going to do any scans, and I'm not going to go to like my GP and like do all those things. But at the beginning I was like, oh, I'll probably get a midwife. And I'd heard of a midwife, and I messaged her. I heard she was like a really hands-off midwife. I messaged her. This is maybe like 12 weeks in. Like I didn't rush to it. I was just like, okay, I'll go do that now. And then I didn't hear back from her. And then in that time, I found Free Birth Society podcast, which, you know, all the stories of women free birthing, so birthing outside of the system. Their definition of free birth is like free birthing without anyone you're paying to be there. So like just birthing with a husband or birthing with a friend or whatever it might be. And I'd heard of free birth before. The first birth video I'd ever watched, which was about 10 years ago, was a free birth. It was just this woman like birthing in a creek with her family around her. And I remember having no charge around it when I watched it and just being like, that's so fucking cool. And there was a story in my head that thought, oh, only women that have had given birth, you must have to give birth at home with a midwife or in the hospital, and then you'll be able to do that. Like now I've, you know, birthed unassisted. I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. Who did I think was going to like, who made the rule? Who was like thinking was going to be like, oh, you're not allowed to do that. You have to have a hospital birth first. You're not allowed a free birth by yourself first. So I got really into Free Birth Society podcast and listening to just women's stories about birthing outside of the system. A lot of women's stories around having quite traumatic births first and then choosing an unassisted birth or a free birth. And yeah, I just very quickly was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm being called to do. Like it just felt like a truth in my body. It was like it wasn't a decision. It was like, obviously this midwife hasn't messaged me back because that is not the path I'm meant to take. I'm doing this. And obviously if I wasn't having a midwife, it meant like I'm having a wild pregnancy. I'm not having anyone, you know, put anything on me. No one's doing anything. So from that point, I was like, yeah, this is what we're doing. The midwife got back to me months later, but by then I was just like, oh no, I don't need you. I'm not going to hire you. And then I think I was probably at like 20 weeks and I was like, okay, well, I want someone at the birth. I don't necessarily want to just like fully free birth, just me and Jacob. It felt right for Jacob to have someone like almost like supporting the space in a ceremonial way and just being there for him to rest into and support with like, you know, the logistics of things. So we started to look around. I met with a doula. Although everything seemed right, like she'd been at free birth, she'd been at unassisted births before, all of these things. It was just like something that I was just like, this, I don't know, it's not a full fuck yes. And Jacob was like, yeah, this is it. She was an older woman. Yeah, I love like, you know, the older woman energy, like a really maternal energy in the space. And then I was just like, I'm just going to sit with this. And the woman followed up quite a few times with me. And I was just like, and I could feel her wanting an answer. And I just couldn't give her a yes. So I'm like, this is a no. And I was like, I'm sorry, I haven't found my yes yet. So it's just going to have to be a no. If I change my mind, I'll come back to you. Yeah. And then later on, we found another, like not a doula, but a birth keeper, which is just like a woman that attends kind of sovereign births outside the system, but doesn't have any medical training. And we found her and that felt really good too. I had one kind of meeting with her at the house and she was good. I felt good with her. We only had one meeting with her. And then at 37 weeks, she called to say she couldn't come to the birth anymore. So I'm 37 weeks pregnant. I could give birth any day. And I was like to Jacob, are we just meant to fucking free birth? I mean, are we just meant to have this baby, just you and me in like a front room? And it was quite like, yeah, it was a bit wobbly to be like, oh, I thought this woman was going to be at my birth and now she's not. Like for a moment, I felt quite dropped. But she then linked me in with another woman who I'm very, 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 very fucking grateful that she did and it all unfolded in the way it did because she connected us in with Leslie, who became our birth keeper. So the woman that came to our birth, and she is just the most fucking phenomenal woman ever. Yeah. I'm sure there's lots of questions about other things, but that's it for now.
So amazing. I love how it just, of course, unfolded for you everything and that you just kept really trusting what your real desires were because that's such a, I mean, obviously it's not the normal choice to make. And so I'm curious, how did your family and friends respond when you told them you made this choice?
Yeah, it's interesting because I wasn't worried about what people would think. I was very clear that this was what we were choosing. The only thing, I had two incidences where people said something and it was early on. One was my sister when I'd shared the news that we were pregnant. And so I was with my sister and my parents and you know, her kids and her husband. And I think she asked like, how are we going to birth? I think she asked if we were going to have scans or something. And I was like, oh no, we probably won't. Even though I knew we wouldn't, it was almost just, I could feel myself like, you know, also just, I'm just freshly pregnant. No, we probably won't. And then the next time I saw her, she was like to me, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And she also had twins. And so in the medical system, you know, high risk, all of these things. So she's coming from her perspective with that. And she said, I need to talk to you about something. I'm really worried about, you know, my future niece or nephew. I just really feel like you should get a scan just to see if everything's okay. And I just said, hey, I know that that's your version of safety, but from my perspective and from what feels true for me not getting a scan is what's safest. Me not getting a scan is actually me choosing the safest option for me, my baby, and our family. And I said, I can feel that you're coming from Marv, and I love that, but like, this is what I'm choosing, and I'm not gonna, budge on that. And it was actually a really beautiful like interaction. She was like, okay, I think my family is also I've been living alternatively and out of those kind of things for like a decade. So I think they kind of knew I can't be wobbled on those kind of things, but that was a beautiful interaction. And then I had another interaction with a friend who I shared with her that I was going to probably just have a doula or a birth keeper and no midwife. And she immediately came back being like, make sure you ask all these questions, make sure you ask them about transferring and all these things. And I just said, hey, I'm not going to ask her about transfer because I don't believe I'm going to transfer. That's not important to me to ask that information. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, I was just sharing that with you. And I feel like immediately you were kind of like giving me like all the things I should do. And that didn't feel good. Like I could feel her fear about what I was choosing. And I just got to, I think it was really beautiful, those interactions. I just got to really hold my like, I can't be fucked with. I'm really anchored in this. Yeah, it didn't affect the relationships I had with those two people. It was actually like strengthening where I could be like, no. And now you see that. Okay, let's move on from here. Yeah. And I'm sure there was probably people that in our family and stuff that like didn't really understand. Mm-hmm. But again, I think Jacob and I just like we don't give people an opportunity to like, I think the posture we take with this is we're doing this not from a righteous way, but it's like we weren't available. This is it. We weren't available for people to bring their opinions and their fear on us. You could hold it in your own body. You can talk about it with other family members. Go for it. Probably people did that, like a fear of like that decision, but we weren't available for it. So we didn't feel it in our field and in our space.
It's so beautiful how like when you fully embody that choice, it changes everything. Like my only relation to this is when I stopped drinking. And at first when I made that choice, everyone's like, come on, have another drink. Like, blah, blah, blah. But now like, I don't know, it's been maybe 8 years. Like no one even blinks twice when I tell them that. And so it's like so true when you really own that like this is our choice with our pregnancy. And I love that. So I love that also it wasn't like you only had those two really beautiful interactions and you could just speak to them with so much truth and love.
And I think that's a piece, again, why I'm so grateful that I did so much work in my own body before, becoming pregnant and choosing to birth and do my pregnancy in this way as well, is that I've kind of shifted the good girl out of the driver's seat of my life as well. So she wasn't thinking that, oh my God, I need everyone to understand my decision and I need to over explain myself and I need, all of these things. I need to be understood. I didn't need people to understand. I was okay with people kind of being like, what the fuck, that's scary as shit. Like, I just needed to be in right relationship with it. Mm-hmm. And again, this is why I'm just like so much more passionate about the work I do now with women, because I'm like, oh my gosh, birth matters. The way we bring our children into the world matters. And in order to birth in power, we need to do work before we birth, because not that we naturally can't birth, we're designed to birth as women, but the cultural conditioning, the conditioning we have to people please, like all of these things gets in the way of our design to really bring babies through our portal to birth.
Yes. Yeah. So good. And it's so empowering because to let other women know that they have that choice. Because, even in so many situations, they're pressured by everyone around them. They don't have that strength in them to declare like, this is my decision. I am not receiving your feedback. Like, I know most women cannot do that. So I love that that is a huge part of your work and it's so needed.
Thank you.
And I would love to hear about your decision of why you didn't want any scans.
To be honest, I'm like not even researched in it. I'm just the kind of person that's like, no, that doesn't sound right for me. I have women close to me that didn't choose scans in their own pregnancy. The children are older and I trust them and I feel them. I think a big piece for me was pregnancy for me wasn't a medical, like birth wasn't a medical event. Pregnancy wasn't a medical event. I didn't see it as a medical event. I don't have an interaction with the medical system before I was pregnant for the last 10 years. I was actually in the emergency room once when I was pregnant, but it was only because I kicked my toe really bad and I needed to go and get like, I needed to get it gone and seen to and washed out. But other than that, like I don't really have a GP, like a general practitioner. I don't interact with the medical system. So for me, it was wild to think, okay, suddenly I'm growing a human within me. I need to go and be a part of this system that really just supports people when there's disease or there's something wrong. I didn't think there was something wrong with me. So it was more not even just about the scans. It was like, I don't feel the need to interact with this system. I don't feel like this system needs to be a part of me creating life and birthing life. I think I've got it.
I love it. It's so good. And I agree so much. Like I am out of the system for so many years too. And so it just makes sense, like what you described, because why would I yeah, lean on it when I haven't been using it? So it's so good. And were there any fears that came up during the process of being pregnant? Like how did you move through anything that you felt? What were some of the stories or anything like that?
To be honest, one of the most surprising things about my pregnancy was the lack of fear.
Mm.
Like I really thought I would feel the fear of like, what if something is wrong with my baby? Because that's also a reality. And I think it's important to speak into this, like taking this path of me not getting scans, me not being involved in the medical system meant that I was taking full responsibility for what unfolded. It's not as if I was just like, yeah, everything's going to be perfect. Yes, there was the part of me that was holding that and also being open to whatever unfolded and really trusting, I could be with whatever unfolded. I think that's important in the path. Like there's no one to outsource to when you're doing a wild pregnancy and an unassisted birth or a sovereign birth. Like there's no one to outsource to. You were taking full radical fucking responsibility. And so there wasn't actually any fears. I think the only fear that kind of came up, and it wasn't a really huge thing, but it was just like the piece that if I was to pick like, oh, what was the little lingering piece? It was, what if I was to birth and something was to go like wrong, whether that be a stillbirth or a complication. I knew Jacob and I could be with that, like be with the grief. I trusted my ability to be with whatever unfolded. I was scared of receiving other people's perceptions of that. Right. Because again, I think in the talk of birthing, like death is also a part of that. We can never, whether we're in the hospital system or out of it, like death is a part of life. Right. And that there was a little fear of that around like if something was to unfold and we stayed at home, other people's perceptions of that was irresponsible. Maybe your baby could have been saved if you went to the hospital, like all of those different pieces. And again, I think that's an important piece of like choosing this way of birthing is, can I be with that? Like, can I be with that potential? And for me, that was still, yeah, I can be with that because, again, for me, the safest place to bring my baby into the world was my home without any interference. Yeah. But to come back, it surprised me the lack of fear. Like I trusted my baby to grow. I never felt like, oh my God, should I go get a scan because I don't know what's happening? I just like felt and trusted it the whole way. I've done a lot of like medicine ceremony and medicine work. So I was really just seeing the birth as like an impending medicine ceremony. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going to unfold. Mm-hmm. My only job is to just surrender when it comes. I know it's going to be intense. It's going to be the most intense experience of my life. And my only job when I get in that intense experience is to just like breathe and welcome it and not try and resist it. So yeah, I think I just knew that was going to be my journey. I wasn't trying to manifest a perfect birth. I was just like, okay, when this comes, I'm going to just meet it.
So good. Yeah, and that obviously takes work beforehand because that is not an easy skill to attain just in normal day-to-day life, let alone when you're actually birthing a human. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece. Like I think I did the work. If I would have chosen this path 10 years ago and had a baby at 22, right, there would have been a lot of shit to work on in the 9 months of pregnancy. And I think, yeah, we either at some stage we have to meet all the stuff that's sitting on top of our ability to trust our body to birth and bring a human earthside. And we can do that before we conceive. We can do that during our pregnancy. We can do that in labor. Mm-hmm. Like we can do, right? And so I think my work was done before I conceived. And I just really felt in deep trust of the process.
So what are some things you'd recommend for women to prepare for that and be so stable?
Sexuality work is so important. If you desire to have an embodied birth, for me, sexuality work is the deepest portal into the body. And where do we have to be to birth? We need to be in our body. A beautiful teacher of mine, Jane Hardwick Collins, I don't think it's her line. I actually think Ina May Gaskin said this, but it's like the same thing that gets the baby in gets the baby out. So it's almost sex, the current of sexuality, the current of sex energy that, procreates is actually what also allows the birth to happen as well. So yeah, doing sexuality work, bringing presence to our pussy and wombs, de-armoring, doing these things where we're actually really rooted and have descended from our head into our body. Because most of us as women, and this was me before I started all of this work, I lived from the shoulders up. I lived in my head. And I've taken years to like start that descent, like down into my heart, then like descending into like my womb and my pussy and really like living from that place. And I truly believe that's why I was able to birth with ease and also move through my pregnancy with ease. Yeah, so I think it's so important to descend from the head because we can't fucking birth from our head. If we try and birth from our head, we're just going to birth from whatever stories are there. The fear, we're going to try and force, like it doesn't happen in the head, it happens in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, sexuality work for sure. And then also a relationship with life, a relationship with God, a relationship with whatever you call that force. Like that's so important. And yeah, I've been in relationship with that force, well, always, but I've had a conscious relationship with life for the last 10 years. So, and again, like the deep medicine work that I've done, I think relating to life in that way and learning how to deeply trust it and rest into it and know that I don't have to force my way through life, that I can actually rest into life's plan, God's plan. Yeah, that was such an important piece to, the entire conception, birth, and beyond journey.
My love, you've built a life, you've built the career, you've built the success, but when it comes to love and softening and receiving, you're always the one in control, always thinking, planning, and doing. What if you didn't have to? Soft Girl Season is your invitation to melt into life where you feel safe, supported, and adored, where you actually can trust men, trust God, and trust yourself. Inside, women have found their dream partners, started receiving clients with less effort, and watched their men step up to pamper, cherish, and adore them, all by learning how to soften into their feminine energy. They've gone from feeling numb and guarded to magnetic, deeply loved, and radiant. So if you're ready to stop over-functioning and start being treated like a queen, come inside Soft Girl Season and let yourself be the woman who has it all. Join us using the link in the show notes and receive instant access and start being provided for by God and men. Yes, that's beautiful points and so essential. And those are like the, truest feminine qualities, is like being so in your body and connected to your womb. And also like having a relationship with God is so much trust and surrender. Like that relationship itself is that. So yeah, those are beautiful. And thanks for sharing that. Okay, so now moving closer to the birth. So what did you do to connect with your baby during the pregnancy process?
So interesting. I wasn't one of those women. Well, I thought I was having a girl the whole time. First of all, I did not. I had a boy. And that was because years ago I was on a medicine journey and I felt like my daughter come to me. And I still feel there is a daughter coming. And then when we conceived, we were both just like, yeah, it's a girl. So we were calling her the whole time. Like I had 2 girl names picked out and I was like, yeah, it's definitely one of them. So I was connected to it. We spoke to her a lot. But in terms of like, I know other women, like some of my friends really feel like the personality of the baby or just like feel the energy. I didn't really get a really strong sense of that. Yeah, I still felt, I would say I felt very embodied in my pregnancy. I didn't feel a really deep connection. I felt a connection to my baby because I was in my body. But in terms of like feeling like this, a spiritual connection to my baby or feeling the essence of my baby, I didn't feel that a lot during pregnancy. But I think for me, it was just like really being in my body and like, feeling my belly and being rooted. And that was just so stunning. Yeah. And we sang to the baby, read to the baby, all of those different things.
Cute. And as for work, how did you shift your relationship with your work as you were pregnant?
Yeah, I got like so after I came out of trimester 1, which, is generally a kind of like slower, more fatiguey kind of season. Trimester 2, I just had all the energy and all the creativity, and I was just so like turned on. And so I was working lots and I was creating lots. And even in trimester 2, I had this idea to run an in-person immersion called Claimed. And I remember saying it to my team. I have a few women that work with me and they're both mothers. And one of them was like, don't do it. Because I was in trimester 2, but it was going to be at the beginning of my trimester 3. And I was like, am I crazy for wanting to plan that? And she was like, don't do it. Like, don't do it. I think it was like going to be 34 weeks pregnant or 32 or something. And she's like, don't do it. And I did it. Because I was like, I'm so turned on by this. This idea is here. I'm just going to do it. And I'm so glad I did it. It was so fun. And so I did so much over that like end of trimester 2, start of trimester 3. I created so much. I ran a 3-day in-person immersion. I ran a bunch of launches and loads of things online. And it just felt really fun. I just had loads of energy and I was just super fertile, right? I'm growing this human and that creativity was really strong. And I think that at points, especially coming to the end, there was part of me that was like, should I be doing less? Should I be not doing this? But it just felt really, really true to continue to work. And then even I'd kind of stopped calls by, I think, 37 weeks. or maybe even 36 weeks, I was like, okay, well, I'll take like a month off beforehand and then have like at least 6 weeks off after off calls. And then I just went back to like my membership, which is only like a few calls a month. But then I didn't give birth till like 41.5 weeks. And then it was like 5 weeks where I really just had nothing to do. And then I was like, a few weeks in, I'm like, I really like my work. I'm like, I'm going to work. So even leading up, not doing calls and stuff, but I was on social media and I was creating little bits of things. So that actually surprised me how much I was just like, I wanted to continue to create throughout my pregnancy. Yeah. I thought it would be like, I would want to fuck everything off and just be in my own little bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so interesting. So that's so beautiful that, yeah, you use the creative energy and you were just feeling, again, listening to that, because, you know, they sometimes say like you should practice slowing down because like that's the new phase, but you were just in full trust of what your energy was doing.
And I was definitely napping like 2 to 3 hours a day in third trimester. So I think, yeah, I was definitely getting a lot of naps in and like chilling loads. But I think in my head, I thought I would take this, especially the later stage, like the, 5 weeks before I gave birth. I just thought I would like not touch my phone or like not do any work at all. But 5 weeks is a long time. And I'm like, oh, I really love my work and I love creating. So I did a little bit. So, but yeah, it was really nice to like have space to nap and like really chill at the end as well.
Yes. And what were some other things you did? Like, were there any like supplements or exercise or things like that?
I was really into reformer Pilates for a lot of my pregnancy. I did get this thing called pubic symphysis pain. Some people call it lightning crotch because it's kind of like a really intense, like just like shooting pain up your crotch, just like when you do certain movements. So by the end of maybe like 34, 35 weeks, maybe 34 weeks pregnant, I stopped Pilates. So, and then I would just do little bits of walking and little stretching around the house. Supplements, there's a really great supplement here in Australia. It's called Foraged. It's a woman and I think she's a naturopath, and it's for really like preconception, pregnancy, birth, motherhood. And then she's got like a child's blend as well. And it's got beef liver and like all these delicious things. So that was like the main one I took. I did work with a naturopath like preconception. My naturopath is epic. She's really about like kind of getting a lot of your stuff from food as well. So yeah, I felt really comfortable just taking the beef liver, and I don't even know if there was anything else I took. Just ate good food, got good sunshine. Yeah.
Basics.
I literally just like lived as if I would live before I was pregnant. Like there were even like, not that I would eat a lot, but yeah, you know how they say like don't eat sushi and don't eat like, I don't eat those kind of meats and stuff, but there wasn't anything I avoided. I'll have a wine every now and again. So I didn't have any wine, but yeah, I genuinely just lived as if I was just continuing to live, but growing a baby. And that felt so freeing to me. And it was so beautiful. Even now, like since having a baby, like I peed on a stick. I haven't seen any doctor. My son hasn't seen a doctor. He's 4.5 months old. And that feels true for us. I know it's not everyone's path, but that sometimes I think that I'm like, oh, that's really wild. Like no one really has been a part of that entire experience for us, which has felt really true and right for me and our family.
Wow. Wow. Ooh, I'm so excited to go more into that. Okay, but let's keep going the journey. So what did you do to prepare like for the actual birth part when you were getting closer to that?
Yeah, so we obviously had a beautiful birth keeper, Leslie, and
Will you explain what a birth keeper is? I've never heard of that.
so birth keeper is more like, so I guess you've heard of like a doula, which I might fuck this up, but like for me, a doula is someone that is like a birth support. And I guess doulas attend hospital births, doulas would attend home births alongside midwives. Doulas might attend births without a midwife, and they're really like a support person, an emotional support person, really space holder in the hospital, probably advocating for the woman, like knowing her birth plan. Where a birth keeper is someone who really only shows up for births outside the system. So she's most likely not going to be there when a midwife is there. It's just like her and the birthing mother and, the father or whoever else, like a photographer or whoever else, whatever the woman wants in the space. Yeah. So I was clear. Yeah. I think I said that before about the midwife, not getting back to me. Yeah. And then I saw a doula and I was like, oh, that she's no. So yeah, found Leslie, our birth keeper. And yeah, like I said before, we only got onto her at 37 weeks. So I'm very pregnant. We had maybe 2 or 3 sessions with her beforehand. And because neither Jacob or I really had any fears, like usually maybe a birth keeper might really, especially because it's an unassisted style birth, maybe the father needs support. So the birth keeper might really just speak to the father about any fears arising or just anything that's arising. birthing. And a birth keeper is really about like a space holder. She's not there to, and this was definitely my experience of Leslie, she wasn't there to tell me what to do. Like she wasn't there as a hierarchical thing for me to outsource to, right? She wasn't there for me to be like, is everything like I could have if I wanted to, but she wasn't a medically trained thing. I'll get into this in the birth, but she wasn't there to like make sure the baby was okay. She was there just as like a woman to have in the space that really fucking believes in birth and could hold that in the field.
Wow.
She came to our home probably 2 or 3 times, and we would just sit and chat, and she would get to know us, and she would bring flowers and food and gifts and massage my feet when I was super pregnant. And yeah, it was really important to her to like get to know our family before she was at that like very intimate experience with us, which I appreciated so much, and could just feel she's just like the most maternal, beautiful woman. And I could just feel how much she believed in birth. And now on the other side of that, and any woman that, especially if you want to birth outside of the system, only have people in the space that unequivocally believe in birth and women and like a woman's ability to birth. If someone is holding a belief of like, you can't do that, or you know the baby's going to be too big, or like any of those stories, like you're going to fucking feel that in the field. I believe the only people that should be in a birth space are people that fucking believe in birth, believe in a woman's ability to birth. And I just could feel that so deeply with Leslie, and that's really the purpose of a birth keeper. So how do we prep? She dropped over a birth pool, so we like, I birthed literally in this room I'm in right now, just like over there. So we like had the pool, we blew it up. So to practice maybe at like 39 weeks. And then it was just there for like 4 or 5 days. And I was like, oh, let's put it down. Cause I'm like getting a bit like, you know, and if we would have kept it up, it would have been there for like 3 or 4 weeks. So it's like, okay, like let's take it down. And yeah, maybe we'll talk about postpartum in a little bit, but we definitely like prepared for that as well. But my husband, Jacob, was also running a huge men's retreat around the same time. So it's like a 200 men at this men's retreat. And he booked the dates before we conceived. When we conceived, I was due on the 23rd of September and the retreat was to start on the 4th of October. So like a week and a half after I was due. And you know, I don't really believe in due dates, but most women in their first pregnancy, if they're not in, you know, the hospital system, they're most likely going to go over 40 weeks. So I was like, Jacob, I think I'm probably going to give birth around the time of your retreat. I was like, do you want to reschedule? He's like, nah, it's okay. He's like, this will be really helpful because if you do give birth around then, it'll be really great preparing the retreat. So if I can't be there, I don't have to be there, and I'll make sure of that. That was actually one of the fears, talking about fears. That was my biggest fear coming up around birth, is that that was going to take away from the birth experience, that like, because I had no certainty of when I was going to birth. So every day it was like, oh, if I give birth today, then maybe we could have a week at home and then you could go to the retreat. Then we both didn't know, was he going to be at this retreat that he's been, you know, organizing for a year, or will other people take it? So that was a big bit of uncertainty. And so a big preparation for him was just like preparing that and making sure like he did not have to be there if he didn't have to be there. Fun fact is that I went into labor the moment of the opening ceremony. The opening ceremony, the retreat started at 3 p.m. I went into labor at 3 p.m. So it was just like, it was just so uncanny and beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. I love that. I mean, at least he gave you that safety. Of course he did, but of saying that, like, I'm going to be there no matter what, which I'm sure eventually sunk in. Okay. So now let's go into, well, I guess we can talk to, like, what did you do to prepare for postpartum? Like, set yourself up for post baby.
Yeah, I was really like, I knew that was so important. I'd heard many women say like, you know, how important that is and how important maybe we think so much about the birth, but then when we're left feeling unsupported or just like, oh my God, intense in the postpartum period. And I'd heard of like the first 40 days, you know, like I think it's a Chinese tradition where they really honor, usually they do like containment where they don't leave the house for 40 days and they're eating certain foods and all these things. But so I knew I really wanted to just like stay in my house for at least 3 weeks. I thought it would want to be 40 days, but it ended up being about 3 weeks, 3 and a bit weeks. I knew I wanted like super nourishing food. So our birth keeper organized a meal train for us. We ended up literally not having to cook for 8 weeks. People dropped over so much food. It was ridiculous. And like Leslie, our birth keeper, cooked for us heaps and came and did about 5 sessions with us after and always dropped food. So that is also like my biggest piece of advice. I know some people might not have as big a community or have as much family around it and everything, but like get people to cook for you. Oh my gosh, like ask for support in that way, or prepare and like put heaps in your freezer. But yeah, we reached out to like lots of people knew. I think that's just the community we're in. That's the people knew like, hey, I'm sure you're doing a meal train. Can I be on the meal train? But then we also just sent it out to people that we knew wanted to love on us and support us. We also set some boundaries with just family, just being like, hey, we probably won't want visitors for the first 2 weeks. That didn't end up being the case. We actually wanted visitors and we wanted people to love our son and like come and visit us. But that felt important too, to just set those boundaries and like just be like, okay, no one has the expectation of like arriving the next day, just so we could then feel like we were choosing when people came. So that was really great. Yeah. And just really seeing the postpartum as a special, intentional, important time. I think that was really important, that like, yeah, that it was a ceremony in itself. And how can we really honor that? How can we really be so deeply supported in that? How we're never going to get this time back. Like the next time I have a child, I'm going to have probably a toddler running around. So like, I'm never going to be able to sink into this time of my life ever again. Like, how can we be so deeply supported and how can we just choose that really deeply?
So good. And one more question that came before we go into the birth is, how did you guys discuss like what you wanted to do with your baby? You said obviously the baby hasn't seen a doctor. Like, yeah, how did you make those decisions together?
About not seeing a doctor?
Yeah, just like the
About
choice you wanted for your baby.
I don't even think that was ever a conversation. I think it was just a known. I think because we've been together, like we knew personally we weren't going to vaccinate our son. We just knew. We'd had those conversations in the years previous. And then I think choosing, yeah, like the part of not having a midwife was a really conscious choice. But while pregnancy, that was just like, oh, of course I'm not going to go see a doctor. So then with our son, it's like, oh, he's here. Of course we're not going to leave the house and take him to the doctor to see if he's okay. Like he's okay. Like we're trusting that. Or like also we're taking on, and I think this is, like I said before, it's an important piece. It's not as if we're just like, oh, it's fine, he'll be okay. It's like, no, we're trusting our instincts. We can feel it. And also we're knowing the responsibility that lies in our hands by taking that path as well. We're not trying to outsource to anyone. We're deeply owning that responsibility too.
Yeah, love it. Okay, let's hear about the birth journey.
Ooh, okay. So I went into labor in 41 and a half weeks pregnant. And I knew I was probably going to go over, but still that last like 10 days after like my like due date is, I say that in quotation marks because I don't believe in that, but those 10 days were just like, they were long because like every day is just kind of like, am I going to give birth today? And then I was just like hanging out, watching Love is Blind on Netflix, going for little walks. I just felt so big at that point too, that I had a bit of that pelvic pain that I couldn't really do long walks or anything. So, and I was just really trying to rest as much as possible too, because I knew like, oh, if I go into labor, and I was very prepared for a really long labor too. So I was like, I don't want to go and like, yeah, go and like really do intense things and then have to go and do a like 48-hour labor or something. I was still like hanging out with friends and doing things, but I definitely was resting and napping lots. And then I had a few times before I like in the week before where I woke up in the night and I was like, it felt a bit like period crampy and I thought I might be going into labor, but then it wasn't. And then it just became so obvious the week of that the retreat was coming. I was like, Jacob, I'm going into labor like as soon as you sell the last ticket, or I'm going into labor like as soon as this starts. I know that that's going to happen. And it was actually really beautiful. And I think our son shows this, that Jacob was then able to really show up and do the last minute pieces and really hand over everything to the guys that were, you know, supporting like right to the last minute. Yeah. And which just worked out so perfectly. So yeah, I gave birth on a Friday. So it was like the Friday morning, the retreat was starting. So we were just in that, like Jacob was getting calls from people and we're just in the excitement of the retreat starting. We were also the night before I'd said, hey, if I don't go into labor tonight or tomorrow morning, like I want you to go to the opening ceremony. Because that was also the uncertainty of like, it would be so annoying if the retreat happens and we're just sitting at home and then I go into, I have the baby like, you know, 3 or 4 days after the retreat and then you weren't able to be like, we just sat there. So that was like a bit like, should you go, should you not? And I said to him, yeah, if I don't go into labor, like I reckon you should go to the opening ceremony. But then I woke up on the Friday and I think it was clear that that day was the day, without like consciously really knowing, because we just took it really slow. We're just out in the backyard cooking food. And then I had a friend over for a little bit and we were watching an episode of Love is Blind, my favorite show. And then I just started to feel like, oh, like I was feeling sensations, but suddenly I like was trying to talk to her and it was just a bit like, oh, okay. Like I had to close my eyes for that. And so then she left and I was just we had this birth sling, which was amazing. A woman named Dr. Jess has created these birth slings that you kind of hang off a door or hang off a wall and it helps take the pressure off. So I was kind of being in that and on the birth ball and things were still kind of slow, but and it was probably like at this stage, it was around 3 that I was like, I think I'm in labor. I think this is more than just like the sensations I felt before. I think I'm in labor. So I text my birth keeper and was like, hey, I think this might be it. I'm going to turn my phone off now because I don't want to be distracted by anything. And I was just like to her, you and Jacob communicate now. And Jacob was really giving me like back compressions then. And then I was just like, okay, I'm really like, they started to really just, the intensity increased and I just wanted to be in water. So this was probably like 4 o'clock and I just went and got in the shower, and I was in the shower for probably like an hour and really having to start to like sound and breathe with the sensations. And I came out of the shower then and I had to get Jacob, I have really dry skin. So I'd like always need moisturizer on. So I had to get Jacob to come and moisturize my whole body because I couldn't really like do it all. And I remember while he was like moisturizing my body, I would then like have to lean over and obviously like be in a surge or be in a contraction. And then I came out to this room again. I think it was whole, like moisturized, but like still fully naked. And then suddenly I was like, I can't be out. I need to go back in the water. And I said to him, I think it's super early for this, but I think I need you to blow the birth pool up and get the birth pool sorted, which I think takes like an hour to like blow it up and put all the warm water in there. And at this stage, it was probably like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I'm thinking I'm going to give birth like the next day, or like, you know, I just wanted to be prepared for it to be a long time instead of thinking it was going to be short. And then, you know, and I think someone said that to me. I think a woman named Michelle, she's a birth keeper as well. She said, I think it was her that said, prepare for it to be way more intense and way longer than you can imagine. And not from a fearful place, just from a place of like, birth can be long and intense, and just prepare that could be a potentiality. So I was prepared for it to be very intense and very long. So I said to Jacob, yeah, I need to be back in the water. Can you blow the birth pool up? So I went back into the shower because I just needed to be in water. And I would lean over like onto the wall of the shower and have the water like on my low back. And then it really became a very primal experience. Then I was just like, through every contraction, I was like moaning. I was like on the floor of the shower at some stage, just like really groaning and really sounding. And again, this is why I said that sexuality piece. I know my embodiment work and my sexuality work 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known how to sound. I would have probably just been like, oh my God, what's happening? Where I knew, okay, welcome the intensity, become the intensity, like breathe with the intensity, sound with the intensity. So that's just all I was doing. It was kind of no mind. It was just like between the contractions, it's like, holy fuck, this is intense. But in the contraction, it's like, okay, my only job is to deeply meet this right now. So I was probably in the shower for another hour just in that. And then I came out and the pool was ready. So I was like, I'm getting in the pool. It's probably like 7:30 or maybe 8 o'clock by this stage. I end up giving birth at like 10:23. So, you know, my labor in total was like 7 hours, which is wow. Doesn't sound like a short time, but it's quite a quick labor. So I get in the pool and yeah, it's like 8 or so. And it's very intense, very primal. I'm moaning, I'm growling, I'm groaning, just really fucking in it, like leaning over the birth pool. And I only found out this later, but in that whole time, Leslie and Jacob had not spoken. Like Jacob had not connected with Leslie. So Leslie's heard me say at 3, hey, I'm probably in labor. And then but I hadn't told Jacob to Jacob and I weren't really chatting while I was in labor. He was just walking around and supporting me. We weren't really I didn't really talk at all. I was just so fucking in it. And yeah, so it got to, around 8 o'clock. I was in the water, really in it. Then there was one point throughout that time where I just felt I know it's now my son drop into my birth canal. Like I felt like this, like woof, like I felt him drop. And I was like, oh, wow. And I think once he dropped, I said to Jacob, oh, have you called Leslie? Or is Leslie coming? And he called her and she said, oh, okay, I'm coming. And I was like, I think the first time they chatted, and this was at 9 o'clock, maybe 8:30. So she was only there for an hour of the labor in the end. And yeah, then again, continued to be intense. And I stuck my fingers inside of myself just to feel what I could feel. And I could feel that it was really it was slippery. And I was like, that's not the head. I was like, he's still in his sack because my waters hadn't broken. So I was like, I'm feeling the sack. I can feel the sack. So I continued to labor again, super intense, just moaning and groaning and leaning on the birth pool. I was gripping Jacob's hands. And I was also rubbing, when sometimes there's so much, maybe this is during sex when there's so much intensity, you just want it to be you want more intensity, the amplified intensity. So it was very intense experience. And so I wanted almost like to be met in that intensity. So I was like rubbing my face on Jacob. At one stage, I was like, we need to make out. And I fully made out with him. I also had this big cold sore on my lip. And he was like, afterwards, he was like, that was so intense. I really just felt like you were like trying to consume me. He was like, it was so overwhelming. Or I'm just like fully in labor, fully like having contractions and fully just making out with him. He was like, this is so a lot. But I just need, and I was like gripping his hands a lot. And then my birth keeper came in, and I think when she came in, I invited, I was like, Leslie, hi. And then she gripped my hands, and it was a really beautiful moment. She came over and held my hands, and I just burst out crying. And it was more this, like, she reflected later, she was like, that was like the maiden leaving and the mother like really, coming into the space. And I also just think it was a really healing thing to have. She's got a very maternal energy. It was like, this mother is here, this woman that has done this before is now in the room. And there was a part of me that could even rest a little deeper into that. And I didn't ever feel like and this was a deep practice of mine, to notice whenever I tensed or I might be trying to get rid of the sensations, was to like, oh, okay, can I actually welcome them? And so just after Leslie arrived, then she kind of she was just in the space. I just started to say, yes, 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 for every contraction. And it was like my way of being like, almost like finding the pleasure in it, but just welcoming it so deeply, letting go of any part of me that was trying to run or get rid of the sensation or bypass it. I was just literally out loud being like, yes, 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 yes. And I just love that moment of my birth, because it was really this, like, the depths of surrender, like how much more of me can I surrender? How much can I welcome this? Because it is fucking intense. I don't like to use the word painful, because it's just this deep cracking open intensity. And yeah, it was so beautiful to just like welcome it, even in the depths of intensity. And then I put my fingers up inside myself again, and I could feel the sac again. And it was like closer to my vaginal opening. And at that stage, I still thought I had hours to go, because he was still in his sac. And I thought what was going to happen was the sac would burst, which is like the water's breaking. And I thought the sac would burst, and then, his head would come down and his head would come out, or then his body would come out. And like, that can take a really long time sometimes. So I felt inside of myself. And then within the next contraction, literally my son flies out into the water, and I go, oh my God, the baby's here. It wasn't even during a contraction that he came out, but it was literally like, and I think the sac has like split when he was in the water. I don't even actually remember the moment of picking him. Like, I don't remember seeing him in the water. I just remember picking him up. As soon as he came out of the water, he just started crying. But yeah, it was the craziest moment, because all of us in the room still thought I had hours to go. And next second, I literally just said, oh my God, the baby's here. And he just shot out of me into the water. It was just the most glorious thing on earth. And then, yeah, he cried straight away, because that was actually a little fear I had. It wasn't overwhelming at all, but it was just a little piece in pregnancy of like, I know it can take some babies a while to come into their bodies. So that might mean like them not crying for a little while, them not looking that responsive for a little while. And I knew that was completely normal. And I was like, oh my gosh, if that happens to me, what will I be like in that moment? Will I be nervous? Will I be scared? Will I be like freaking out? What would happen? And it was just really beautiful that my son, like literally as soon as I brought him up from the water, he just cried. And then, yeah, I was just like, oh my God, he's here, he's here, he's here. And I burst out crying. And again, just like so shocked at him. I was like, he's here, that was you. Because it happened so quickly. Yeah. And then I was just ecstatic. Like I literally felt like I was on MDMA, and I looked like I was on MDMA. I had the biggest like black pupils ever. And I'm smiling at Leslie and Jacob, just going, I'm so happy. I was like, I'm so happy. And it was just the best moment ever. And yeah, then we looked at, like, after a few minutes, we were like, oh, should we check what it is? Like, is it a girl or a boy? And we looked down, I was like, oh my God, it's a boy. I said, we weren't expecting you. And it was just beautiful. And my dog was there the whole time too. I didn't add that piece, that our dog was just on one at the time, and he's a cattle dog, which they can be quite crazy. And that was also a little bit that came up for me in pregnancy, at the end of pregnancy, like, who's going to take our dog Django? Because I just knew I didn't really want him there, but also it was going to be hard. Like, what time am I going to be in labor? How long do people have to take him for? Da, da, da. When I was laboring in the shower, he just sat outside the shower. And he's never done that. He literally just sat with me and I was making so much noise and he just sat there. And so immediately it wasn't even a conversation. Jacob and I never said, should we get it? He just stayed. It wasn't ever a conversation. And then he was there in the room, like there's photos of him. And then as soon as Oshi came out and I like picked him up, he like came over and he was like sniffing. And I'm just so glad he was there for the experience. It was just unbelievably beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a story. That's like the most beautiful birth and how just so organic and such a testament of
Mm.
your surrender and the love you've created for in yourself and in your relationship.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just, it's funny, how my plan going in was just like to surrender to whatever it is. But also, when I do think back, I'm like, I knew I was going to give birth exactly where I gave birth and in the position. There was like, when I would visualize it, it's not as if I had a daily meditation practice where I would visualize, but just whenever I did kind of think about it, I did have a feeling that it was going to be shortish, even though I was preparing for a long labor. I had a feeling I was going to birth exactly as I did. And I just, yeah, I knew it was going to be intense. It's just how it unfolded. There was part of me that was just like, oh, yeah, of course it was like this. Of course it was like this.
Oh,
Yeah, and then and then I stayed in the pool with him for like an hour, which again is like the most beautiful thing about birthing in the way that we chose to birth is that no one came. I literally held my baby for an hour. No one touched him. Jacob didn't even touch him for an hour. Like, or he came around and, but like I held my baby in the water for an hour. I didn't even notice the water temperature. It was probably coldish by the time, but I just stayed there because that's what felt true. And I was just gazing at my baby. He latched while I was in the water and I got to just fully sit in like the oxytocin high and be in that moment so deeply without feeling rushed, without feeling like someone had to clean my baby, prick my baby, do whatever. It was unbelievably magical. And then my placenta, obviously, you then have to birth the placenta. So my placenta came out like 15 minutes. So you have contractions after as well to like birth the placenta. And that was really easeful too. That came out like 15 minutes after I birthed him. And then, yeah, after an hour in the water, I got out and Jacob held him and the placenta was still attached. And I just lay down. And then we had a little burning ceremony like a few hours after of the placenta cord and of the umbilical cord. And yeah, I just went to bed with our new baby.
cute. Ah, so magical. Oh, wow. I'm so grateful to hear the story and to hear how amazing it was and that it was so smooth. So smooth.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Yeah, I'm really, really grateful.
I can imagine. Yeah. It must feel good that that's how it all worked out, even though you had that knowing, but still so, so good. And I guess just like last little thing is what have you done to support yourself, like post giving birth?
Yeah. Well, I think that like postpartum period, like I said, like that first kind of 40 days, I just received, like I let myself really deeply receive. So, yeah, like people were cooking for us. I really ate warming foods for like probably 8 weeks, but yeah, like stews and lots of bone broth and like Leslie, our birth keeper, was then postpartum support. So she came in immediately the day after and like loved on us and massaged my feet and yeah, just tended to our home. And she came like 5 times within the first 6 weeks. I lay down in bed for like at least the first week. Sometimes Jacob would change the sheets because like baby poo or like, I'm still bleeding. So then I would just come into this room and like, lay in this on the couch. Yeah, I didn't get in the car for the first 4 weeks. So we didn't get in the car. We like just stayed at home. We have a creek near us. So I like took a few walks to the creek, but yeah, just like staying at home, really, really not trying to do too much. I didn't think we would want visitors, but we did really want visitors. I was just so excited to share our baby. So we actually had quite a few, but not visitors that were like, coming and like, can I have the baby? And like visitors that just felt really nourishing. And again, it was just like people could feel that, you come into our space and you support us. And yeah, so that it just all felt so delicious. So yeah, I would just lie in bed and people would come and visit and love on me and love on our little baby. And yeah, but I think nourishing food, like warm, nourishing food, trying to get up and get back into life or go outside. Like I was just like, okay, I'm spending 4 weeks at home and just letting people support. I think that's a big thing that I learned before becoming pregnant as well is like I learned to be a woman that could deeply receive. And that made it very easeful. Like it made it easeful that we had epic family and epic community. Like our community really showed the fuck up, but also to like graciously receive that was really beautiful too.
Oh, love that community. I mean, they always say it takes a village, and really is so nice when you have that support because I personally couldn't imagine doing it any other way. And I know I can feel how nourishing that was to have all of them there with you and for you.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's something that you can't click your fingers and then as soon as you give birth, have community around. That's something that you have to consciously cultivate before. And I think that's been a huge part of this conversation, right? It's like, I don't think it's by accident that we had that I feel really nourished as a mother and I had a really beautiful birth. I think it's a lot of the decisions I made leading up to falling pregnant and all these things. And I think there has to be such a deep intentionality because of how far our society has come from, nature and living in community and trusting the body. So kind of if we want to feel supported, if we want to feel nourished in postpartum, if we want to birth in power, there's actually a lot of fucking work to it.
Yes. Yes, definitely. But it's clearly worth it because
so worth it.
Yeah. Clearly.
I highly recommend the work.
Yeah. You're making me feel so inspired. It's amazing. Thank you so much. And the last question of the podcast is, what is one of your most favorite memories with Jacob? Romantic memories. Or any.
Two things came up. One was like our first year wedding anniversary. So it was like a year and a bit ago now. And we just went away to Byron Bay and just like, I tried on my wedding dress again. And it was just like one of those weekends where you're just in bliss and just like deep connection. And yeah, it was just really special. And also our wedding and also oh my gosh, the wedding. Yeah. Unbelievable. We had like a 3-day festival wedding and also birth, like witnessing him. Yeah. How he supported me and how he received our son was so beautiful. Yeah. Too many memories. Too many great memories.
I love to hear that here. That's amazing. Okay. And for anyone that wants to find you, work with you, what do you have for them?
Yeah. Come follow me on Instagram. I'm at the.meg.o. I am shadow banned. So sometimes you might not be able to find me, but I am there. Keep looking. My website is meg-o'neill with 2 L's.com. There's loads of freebies on there. We have a podcast, my husband and I, called Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We do a lot of conversations together, my husband and I. Yeah, and it's just so epic to just speak. Like people really appreciate us just speaking, from the truth and the reality of our relationship. But then I also interview guests and do some solo episodes on there too. And then my main thing that I offer is my membership called Full Spectrum Woman. So yeah, it's the place that I coach women and do embodiment practices. And we have a whole curriculum and deep sisterhood and community of women devoted to this, like living true embodied lives, like deeply descended into our pussies and wombs.
Amazing.
Yeah. Come find me.
Yes, it'll all be in the show notes. Thank you again. I feel so grateful for you taking this time today.
Oh, thank you, Lexy. That was so much fun.
You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this convo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation, sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?